are going to kick off our program with Eric Gladen. Many of you were at the Crest Theater last night to see his amazing documentary, Trace Amounts. To our legislators, if you have not seen that movie yet, you must see it before you vote on this bill. It is just imperative, critical information that we, the citizens of California, want you to learn about before voting on this bill. And let's see here. Not only, well, Eric is the filmmaker of Trace Amounts, and it is a film that took him almost a decade to make. It began as a result of Eric being mercury poisoned himself by a Tdap vaccine at age 29. So I'm going to, without further ado, introduce Eric and let him tell his story.
Thank you. For those of you who haven't seen the film, I think there's been quite a few headlines out there calling it an anti-vaccine film. And I think, there hasn't been one person that's actually watched the film that comes up and says that. It's very clear, I think, that this really isn't about being pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine. This is a much deeper issue, and this is an issue that I take extremely serious. I realized going into this film that there's severe consequences to both sides of the story, and that's pretty much the exact reason why it took me 10 years to make this film. Is I knew I had to have it right. I knew I had to have the science right, and I took that to heart going forward with my research. But I also knew that this was a story that had to be told. This is something that the public isn't aware of. There's much more to the story here. And that's, I would talk to people about this issue and kind of tell them about the science and tell them about my experience and what happened to me. And it just kind of came out like a bunch of gargle. There was no sense to it. There was no pattern to it. There was no rhyme or reason to it. Nobody could understand what I was saying. So that's kind of the reason I put this film together, to really piece this together, show the history of what's happened from 1931 all the way till where we are in 2015 today. So there's something called the Freedom of Information Act that allows you to put in requests for government emails, government documents, and organizations like Safe Minds, individuals like Dr. Brian Hooker have gone after these FOIA requests for years. And what we really want to show in this film, and what we do show in this film for you that saw it last night, was the CDC has figured out the cause, one of the primary causes of autism, and they figured it out in 1999. And we have the documents that show they figured out this major association between the thimerosal preservative, that's a mercury-based preservative, and autism. And then we've also got the transcripts, the closed-door meeting transcripts that show what they did with the data, and their emails to show what they did with the data, to manipulate the results, to get it down to show no association whatsoever. And we've now got Bill Thompson, a CDC senior scientist, who still works for the CDC to this day, validating everything and confirming that the CDC, when they find an association between vaccines and autism, they're put into a room and they manipulate the data until they get that association to go away. Oh. Is that better? So year after year, I'll just speak a little louder. So year after year, we hear the CDC all over the news saying, vaccines do not cause autism. The science is the science. The science has been done, and we're moving on to different avenues. And just by doing basic research, you can call their bluff almost instantly. And by doing a little bit more research, you'll see that the science actually shows the exact opposite, and it proves it down to the cell, literally. A lot of the science that you guys saw in my film last night, it's not even the most compelling science. I had to put science in the film that I believe people would understand. I kind of brought it down to a layman term so people could really kind of grasp and absorb a lot of the science. But that's nowhere near the compelling science that exists out there to this day that shows a direct link between thimerosal and neurodevelopmental disorders, not just autism, but tics, speech delays, sleep disorders. I mean, there's a whole array of neurodevelopmental disorders that this is linked to, and the CDC has already found this.
They can't hear him back.
Yeah, I think should I talk louder?
Try that.
Is that better? Can you guys hear me better? Okay. Did you guys hear anything I said, or do I need to start over? So year after year, parents are starting to do the research. They're looking, all this information is readily available. They're finding these documents. They're looking at the scientific studies. The brilliant part of having the internet is people can go to PubMed and look at these published studies and analyze the studies that they claim has ruled thimerosal or vaccines out. And, you know, and year after year, more parents are becoming more concerned with vaccinating their children because they're reading this data, they're reading the published studies. And, you know, the answer isn't now to force them to get these vaccines. That doesn't solve this. The answer is to turn this corrupt system upside down and start restoring faith in the parents, you know, restore their faith in the organizations that are out there supposed to be protecting them. You know, that's the true answer. So, you know, one by one, journalists are watching this film, legislators are watching this film, and the response has been tremendous. I mean, I've got these guys approaching me after the film saying they are just furious. They can't believe what they just saw. You know, they've trusted the CDC. The CDC is who they listen to when they present their science. And they're outright embarrassed because a lot of these journalists have been reporting, you know, this inaccurate information they're given from the CDC and these other government organizations who have vested interest in covering this up. And they're furious, yet they're still scared to talk about it. And Bobby and myself, you know, you'll see a lot of censoring in the media because of this issue. And we're really starting to build a lot of momentum now because we're getting those journalists to look at this. We're getting these journalists to understand the history of what's happened here. And they are literally changing their minds, yet we need enough of them to do this so we can kind of overturn the mainstream media. So you know, the fundamental issue here is not really, in my mind, being pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine. This is a much deeper issue. We've got a system that's broken, a system that's corrupt. We need to restore the faith in the parents to really get to the bottom of this issue, and we need to hit it head on now. So I urge everyone from both sides of this debate. Again, you know, first 3 years I researched this issue. I really went after the science, so I didn't, you know, so I could stop. And if there was a lot of science that disproved this, I could have stopped a long time ago. But that science doesn't exist, and I really urge people from this side, that side, all sides regarding this issue to watch this film. You can watch it today. You can watch it right now, traceamounts.com. Watch this film, become educated. This is 10 years of research put in a 90-minute film. And I think the entire public needs to watch it in order to protect themselves and their family. So, now I'd just like to introduce the next speaker.